They walked away when you needed them most. They cut you deep, left you bleeding, and when you finally started to heal, here they come, knocking again, calling again, smiling like they never made you cry. But I came to ask you one question today. What do you do when they return after hurting you? Because not everybody who leaves deserves a return ticket. Not every apology means they've changed. And not every wound is meant to be reopened. I'm not here to give you permission to hate. I'm here to give you wisdom to stand, to discern, to protect the peace you prayed for. So, let's talk about it. You fought for your peace like your life depended on it, because at times it did. You were bleeding on the inside while smiling on the outside, crying behind closed doors while showing up strong in public. You had to rebuild yourself from the ruins of betrayal, from the ashes of disappointment, from the silence they left when they walked out. That healing wasn't easy. It wasn't instant. It wasn't free. It cost you nights of prayer. It cost you trust. It cost you pieces of your old self you'll never get back. You had to unlearn needing their approval. You had to detach from what you thought the story would be. You had to stop romanticizing the people who showed you they weren't safe. And let's be honest, some days the pain made you angry. You wanted answers they never gave, apologies they never spoke, closure that never came. You screamed into pillows. You questioned your worth. You blamed yourself for their action, but you kept rising. Every time you wiped your own tears, you were writing a new chapter. Every step you took forward, you were proving to yourself that healing is possible. Even when your heart was still broken, even when your trust was still shaky, you were healing. And now they show up. After the damage has been done, after the storm you didn't ask for nearly drowned you, they want to walk back into the very place they once shattered. They want access to the healed you, forgetting they helped break the old you. But your healing is not a playground. Your peace is not up for negotiation. It's sacred. It's holy. It's not something you toss at the feet of someone who treated it like trash the first time. You are allowed, no, you are commanded to protect what you fought for. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to say, no, you don't get to come back just because you're ready now. Healing didn't come from them. It came in spite of them. Let them feel the distance. Let them see the change. Let them hear the silence that now speaks louder than your begging ever did. This peace you carry, it came from war. Don't you dare let the ones who brought the battle be the ones who steal the victory. You've laughed again. You've smiled from your soul again. You've breathed without heaviness again. That didn't happen overnight. So when they return, remember the fight it took just to feel light again. You're not cold. You're not bitter. You're just done handing access to someone who proved they can't handle your heart. This peace is sacred. Protect it with everything you've got. They'll come back with a smile. Oh, yes, they will. That same person who ghosted you, betrayed you, lied on you, abandoned you in your moment of need. They'll come back with charm in their voice and sweetness on their lips. Like nothing ever happened. Their words will be dressed up like gifts. I've missed you. I was going through something. I wasn't myself back then. And maybe, just maybe, a part of you will want to believe them, because the human heart is tender, because love still lingers in the corners of your memory, because you remember the good days. You remember the laughter, the way they used to make you feel, the version of them you fell for, not the one who left you bleeding. But this time, don't get hypnotized by the smile. Don't let soft words override hard truth. Test the spirit, not the smile. Watch the fruit, not just the flowers. Look at who they are now, not who they were when your heart was naive and your hope was louder than your wisdom. Because some people know exactly how to talk. They know what to say. They know how to trigger your empathy, pull on your kindness, make you feel like you owe them another chance, as if their return is a favor they're doing you. But listen, wisdom has a memory. Wisdom remembers patterns. Wisdom doesn't just accept apologies. It inspects behavior. It waits. It watches. It discerns. You see, real change doesn't beg for quick restoration. It comes with humility, not expectation. When someone is truly different, they don't pressure you to open the door. They're willing to stand outside and knock, even if it takes time. They don't gaslight your pain or minimize your healing. They acknowledge the damage. They sit in the discomfort of what they caused. But when someone comes back and their words sound right, but their spirit still feels wrong, trust that feeling. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. That's growth. That's your healed self whispering, don't go back to what you had to pray your way out of. It's serious. Because if you ignore the signs again, you won't just be hurt again. You'll be hurting yourself this time. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, and I handed you the blame. And sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the obvious ones. They don't come with fangs. They come with familiarity. They come looking like comfort, but they carry confusion. They sound like closure, but they bring chaos. That's why you can't let your emotions be louder than your discernment. Yes, they may have cried. Yes, they may look sincere, but sincerity isn't always purity. Not everyone who wants back into your life is sent by mercy. Some are sent by distraction. Some are a test to see if you've really grown. So test it. Don't rush it. Don't fall for charm. Fall for change. Look for consistency. Look for humility. Look for the fruit. Because a tree can only produce what it's rooted in. And if they're still rooted in pride, selfishness, or manipulation, no matter what they say, the fruit will tell the truth. Test the spirit, not the smile. It might just save your soul from another season of unnecessary sorrow. Forgiveness is not weakness. Let's start there. Too many people think that when you forgive, you're letting someone off the hook. That when you forgive, you're saying what they did was okay. But forgiveness doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean acceptance of the offense. It means you're releasing yourself from the prison their actions tried to lock you in. Forgiveness is heavy. Don't let anyone minimize it. It takes strength to look at the person who broke you and say, you don't owe me anymore. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. That's power. That's growth. That's a kind of joy that doesn't come from pretending it didn't hurt, but from knowing it doesn't control you anymore. But here's what needs to be said loud and clear. Forgiveness does not equal access. Just because I let go of the offense does not mean I'm letting you back in the same position you had before. I can forgive you and still protect myself from you. I can release the bitterness and still keep my distance. Forgiveness is about cleansing my heart. Boundaries are about guarding my life. It's serious. Because sometimes people come back thinking an apology is a reset button, like all the damage is erased with a simple, I'm sorry. But words don't erase consequences. Words don't rebuild trust. Words are the beginning, never the proof. And let's not ignore the emotional roller coaster that comes with this. You're standing there face to face with the one who hurt you. They're saying all the right things. And a part of your heart wants to respond with open arms. Why? Because you're kind. Because you remember the good. Because you've already rehearsed 100 versions of this moment in your mind. You've pictured what you'd say. Maybe you even dreamed of this day when they'd finally see what they did and come back to make it right. But here's the tension. You can want reconciliation and still require accountability. You can offer grace without giving up your ground. You don't have to swing the door wide open just because they knock with a tear in their eye. Some of the people you're called to forgive are the very same people you're called to walk away from. And that doesn't make you evil, that makes you wise. That makes you a steward of your own soul. Because if you let everyone who says, I'm sorry, back into your life without discernment, you'll spend your whole life patching up the same wounds by the same hands. And the danger is that sometimes we confuse guilt with compassion. You feel bad for shutting the door, even though it's the right thing to do. You feel like you're being harsh, even though you're finally being healthy. But you've got to remember, setting a boundary doesn't make you bitter. Saying no doesn't make you cold. It makes you whole. There's a joy in forgiving without reattaching. There's a quiet strength in looking someone in the eye and saying, I forgive you, but I don't trust you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that's okay. It's okay to protect your progress. It's okay to preserve your peace. It's okay to honor the version of you that had to fight through the tears just to stand on your feet again. So when they return, yes, forgive them. Free your heart from the weight. But don't confuse forgiveness with restoration. Restoration is a process. It takes time, truth, and evidence. You don't rebuild a house on the same cracked foundation. You inspect it. You test it. You make sure it's safe before you move back in. Let go of the pain, but hold on to your wisdom. Let go of the grudge, but keep the boundary. Because forgiveness is what you give them, but access is what they have to earn. You've grown, whether they see it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, whether they come back and try to talk to you like you're still the same soft, naive, desperate version of yourself. The truth is, you've grown, and when growth happens, the way you respond to familiar situations must change. The old you would have picked up the phone the moment they called. The old you would have dropped everything for the person who never chose you when it counted. The old you would have been quick to forgive and quicker to forget, trying to keep the peace, trying to hold on to people who didn't know how to hold you right. But not anymore. You've cried your way through transformation. You've bled wisdom from wounds you never asked for. And now you see things differently. You walk different. You talk different. Your heart still loves, but it loves with boundaries. Your kindness still shows up, but it doesn't come without discernment. You're no longer just reacting, you're responding. And that shift, that's proof you're not who you used to be. And yes, there may be a part of you that still wants to hold on to the softness, the warmth, the hope. You might still feel a little sting when you think about what was. That's okay. Growth doesn't mean you lose your heart, but it does mean you guard it. You used to respond from your wounds. Now you respond from your wisdom. You used to react out of desperation. Now you move from a place of clarity. It's okay to feel the tension between who you were and who you're becoming. Sometimes growth feels like grief because you're saying goodbye to the version of yourself who once believed in things that nearly destroyed you. You're saying goodbye to the one who tolerated too much, gave too much, ignored too many red flags, said yes to things your soul was screaming no to. There's anger in that. Yes. There's a holy anger that rises up when you finally realize how long you let people play with your loyalty. But there's also joy. There's laughter when you catch yourself no longer falling for the same lines. There's a quiet celebration in the moment you feel the urge to respond to them like you used to, and you don't. That's growth, and growth is beautiful. But growth is also lonely sometimes because you outgrow conversations. You outgrow explanations. You outgrow needing to be understood by people who were committed to misunderstanding you. So when they return and they expect you to act like nothing happened, expect you to laugh like the pain never hit, expect you to open your arms like you weren't left empty before, let your response remind you how far you've come. You don't owe them your old self. You don't owe them the you that cried at night hoping they'd call. You don't owe them access to the healed, restored, wiser, stronger version of you that had to fight to rise from the ruins they left behind. If they want back in, let them see that the door doesn't swing the same way it used to. Let them see that you no longer operate from a place of need, but from a place of knowing. You know who you are now. You know what you carry. You know your worth. Growth means your response changes. It means silence replaces the need to explain. It means peace replaces the need for revenge. It means you no longer show up to prove anything. You show up already whole. And when they see you again, when they hear your voice, when they recognize that you're no longer reaching, no longer pleading, no longer performing, they'll realize something powerful. You healed without them, and that truth alone will say everything. You don't have to. You were never created to be a doormat. Never. You weren't formed with breath in your lungs and strength in your bones just to be walked over by people who can't see your value. You were never meant to carry someone else's chaos at the cost of your own soul. And yet, you did. Let's tell the truth. You gave chances. Too many. You extended grace. You tried to understand. You bent over backwards for people who didn't even lean forward. You explained yourself over and over, thinking maybe if you said it the right way, they'd finally hear your heart. You made excuses for their behavior, covered their patterns with hope. You called it loyalty, but looking back, some of that was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of letting go of what you thought was love. They used your kindness like currency, like something they could spend freely without ever paying it back. And when they hurt you, you stayed. When they blamed you, you apologized. You carried guilt that wasn't even yours just to keep the peace. And that's what made it even worse. They saw your silence as weakness. They saw your love as a leash. They thought you'd always be there no matter how many times they broke you. But something happened, something holy, something powerful. One day, the weight got too heavy. The tears didn't come like they used to. The begging stopped. The part of you that once held on so tightly started letting go, not because you stopped loving, but because you started seeing. You saw all the disrespect that had been wrapped in pretty words. You saw how the same cycle kept repeating while they swore they were changing. You saw how they only came close when they needed something from you. And that anger, that rage that bubbled up when you realized how long you allowed yourself to be mistreated, that was a weakness. That was awakening. Because the moment you recognized you were made for more, you stopped tolerating less. You stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that insult your spirit. You stopped answering to names that were never yours. They called you too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But the truth is, you were just too real for their comfort. And now, you walk differently. You speak with clarity. You love with wisdom. You've learned that love without respect isn't love, it's control. You've learned that peace is not found in keeping everyone happy. It's found in refusing to let anyone walk all over your soul again. You can still be kind, still be warm, still be loving, but never again at your own expense. Never again will you trade your voice for approval. Never again will you let someone turn your heart into their playground. You were not made to be a doormat. You were made to walk in purpose. You were made to carry light. You were made to live with dignity. So if they come back expecting the same access, the same leniency, the same version of you they took for granted, let your boundaries be the answer. Let your silence speak what your voice no longer needs to explain. They may not understand the strength it took to stop being the one who always says yes, but that's okay. You didn't grow for them. You didn't heal for them. You found your value in the fire, and now that you know who you are, never again will you allow anyone to treat you like less. You are not a doormat. You are the doorway to something divine, and not everyone gets to walk through. You don't owe anyone your healing story. Read that again. You don't have to crack open the chapters of your pain just to prove that you've grown. You don't have to walk around with your scars on display just so someone who once hurt you can understand how deep the wound went. Healing is yours, sacred, personal, and powerful. And not everyone deserves a front row seat to it. There was a time when you were desperate to be understood. You wanted them to get it. You wanted them to see what they did, to feel your pain, to recognize the sleepless nights they caused, the panic attacks you hid, the way your self-worth shattered in silence because of words they tossed around like they meant nothing. You wanted to grab their face and say, "Do you see what you did to me?" Not out of vengeance, out of longing. Longing to be seen, to be validated, to not feel crazy for feeling broken. But here's the truth that hurts before it heals. Some people will never understand the damage they cause because it would require them to see themselves clearly. And that's a level of honesty they're not willing to face. So they'll downplay it, they'll rewrite history, they'll say things like it wasn't that deep, or you're being dramatic, or worse, I don't even remember doing that. That's the kind of denial that makes you want to scream. Because how can they not remember what you can't forget? How can they not carry the weight that still sits in your chest? It's infuriating, it's heartbreaking, and it's the moment you realize that healing can't be for them. It has to be for you. You see, the power of healing isn't in explaining it, it's in owning it, quietly, deeply, without needing applause, without needing validation, without needing the one who hurt you to say, "You were right." That's hard. That's real hard, but that's growth. Because there's a difference between closure and clarity. Clarity says, I need them to make it right. Clarity says, I now see them for who they really are, and I can finally move on. And sometimes in your healed state, they come back. Oh yes, they come back, acting like nothing happened, joking, laughing, asking if you remember that one funny moment, as if that moment erases the ones that made you weep. And in those moments, your silence will feel like power. Not because you're cold, not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand that your healing doesn't need an audience. It needs a performance. It doesn't need you to reopen wounds. For the comfort of the one who calls them, there's joy in that realization. A quiet, deep joy. The kind that doesn't need to shout. The kind that walks into a room and carries peace like armor. The kind that knows you don't have to revisit the fire to prove you survived it. You're not obligated to tell the whole story. Some chapters were written in tears only you and your Creator saw. And that's enough. They may try to fish for details. They may say you've changed with a tone like it's a bad thing. They may ask, what happened to you? Not knowing that what happened to you is that you grew, you healed, you found strength in silence. You chose not to let pain become your personality. So no, you don't owe them your process. You don't owe them a backstage pass to the battles they never showed up for. Let your glow confuse them. Let your calm make them curious. Let your boundaries speak for the journey they never saw, because healing doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like smiling in the same place where you once cried. Sometimes it looks like not explaining yourself anymore. And that's a victory no one has to clap for but you. When they return, you don't have to meet them at the same emotional level they left you in, because truth be told, they probably left you real low. Left you confused, overthinking, second-guessing yourself. You were in the dark, asking questions with no answers, trying to fix what you didn't break. They walked away while you were still bleeding and expected you to stay there, frozen in that place of pain, like a bookmark they could flip back to whenever they wanted. But you didn't stay there. No, you rose. Maybe not all at once. Maybe you stumbled a few times. Maybe you had days where it felt like you were drowning in memories you couldn't escape. Maybe you sat in rooms full of people and still felt invisible. Maybe the silence was loud and the nights were long and healing felt more like surviving than anything else. But you kept going. You clawed your way through every wave of grief, every silent scream, every shattered moment. You held your broken pieces close until you learned how to mend them. And now they show up, knocking like nothing happened, expecting the same version of you to answer the door. But they don't know. They don't know that the door doesn't even open the same way anymore. They don't know that you're not that fragile, desperate person begging for closure. They don't know you've built peace in the same place where they left chaos. They may still be operating at a level of immaturity, thinking time is all it takes to heal betrayal, thinking an apology is enough to erase absence, thinking that your kindness is a sign they can step back into your life without permission. But you've changed, not in pettiness, not in bitterness, in power. So no, you don't have to match their tone. You don't have to match their timing. You don't have to pretend to be excited to see them again. You don't have to laugh just because they're smiling. You're not obligated to lower yourself to fit their comfort. If they come back lighthearted, pretending everything is fine, and you're still carrying the weight of what they did, you have every right to pause. Every right to say, this is not a joke to me. Every right to let them feel the depth of what you carried alone. You don't have to rage. You don't have to scream. But you do have the right to show up in truth. And sometimes truth is quiet. Sometimes truth is a calm, confident no. Sometimes truth is not engaging in the conversation they're trying to have because you already finished it in your soul. You already answered the questions they're just now waking up to ask. There's a serious kind of joy in knowing that you've moved on without needing revenge. There's a satisfaction in being at peace while they're just starting to feel the consequences of their actions. You're not stuck. You're not bitter. You're just aware. And that awareness is your strength. You've learned to take your emotions seriously. You've learned that someone else's casual attitude doesn't have to dictate your internal temperature. You're not cold. You're clear. Clear about what you deserve. Clear about what you'll never tolerate again. Clear about the fact that healing took everything from you, and no, they don't get to walk back in and act like it was nothing. So when they return, whether they come back with tears or laughter, with apologies or avoidance, you don't owe them emotional alignment. You owe yourself truth. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself the permission to feel exactly what you feel without explanation. And if they can't meet you in that space of honesty, then maybe they never belonged there to begin with. Because you've grown into someone who deserves depth, who deserves accountability, who deserves presence, not performance. Let them come back if they will. But never forget, you are no longer where they left you. And you are no longer the one they thought they could leave behind. The apology might come, it might come late, it might come soft, or it might come wrapped in excuses. But when it comes, you'll face a decision you never thought you'd have to make. Do you let them back in, or do you let them stay where they left themselves? Because not every apology deserves access. Not every "I'm sorry" should be treated like a key. Let's be honest. Some apologies are genuine. They come from a place of reflection, of humility. But let's also tell the truth. Some apologies are nothing more than manipulation wearing a new outfit, a trick, a strategy to reset the story in their favor. Some people don't apologize because they truly understand your pain. They apologize because they see that you've moved on and they don't like being left behind. They don't want to fix what they broke. They just don't want to feel the discomfort of being outside your peace anymore. You remember how it felt when they left you with no closure, no care, no accountability? They ghosted your emotions, invalidated your tears, maybe even blamed you for what they did. And now they return with a weak, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt," not "I see how I hurt you." There's a difference. One dismisses, the other takes responsibility. And you know now, you've learned the difference. You didn't spend all those nights healing just to be sucked back into the same storm, wrapped in a softer tone. You didn't go to war with your inner demons, pick yourself up off the floor, and stitch your soul back together just to let someone who broke you stroll back in without proof of change. This isn't bitterness speaking. This is wisdom. This is clarity. This is you finally knowing the value of your own heart. Because you remember who you were before the pain, the one who gave too quickly, trusted too easily, forgave too fast. And you remember how the pain shaped you, the deep, silent suffering, the anger that boiled when they acted like they did nothing wrong, the confusion that made you question your worth, the moment you realized you were just a convenience to them, a comfort when they needed, but never a priority when it counted. And now here they come, after the storm. When the sun is shining again in your life, when you've found your smile again, when you've created new habits, new joy, new peace. Here they come, acting like they just needed time, as if time alone heals without work, without honesty, without restitution. But you know better now. You know healing is sacred. You know your heart is not a hotel that people can check in and out of when it suits them. You know that an apology isn't a bridge, it's only the start of building one. And if they're not coming with materials, truth, change behavior, patience, consistency, then what are they even building? Nothing, just words. There's strength in listening to an apology without melting. There's wisdom in hearing someone say, "I'm sorry," and still saying, "Thank you for saying that, but I'm still choosing peace without you." There's maturity in understanding that forgiveness doesn't mean access. You can forgive them and still guard your space. You can release the anger without reviving the relationship. You can let go and still keep your standards. Because love isn't proven by how fast you forgive. It's proven by how well you protect what took so long to rebuild. Your healed heart is not a prize for someone who only showed up when they realized they were losing you. Your peace is not a reward for someone who made you earn every ounce of their affection while you gave yours freely. You've paid the price already. Don't go back into debt. Let them apologize. Let them speak. Let them express whatever they feel, but let your boundaries respond louder than your emotions. You didn't come this far to let sorry be enough. Not this time. Not anymore. When they return after hurting you, sometimes they don't come back because they've changed. They come back because you have. They come back and find that the old version of you they were so used to, the one who over-explained, over-gave, overcompensated, doesn't live here anymore. That version of you, the one who tolerated disrespect and wrapped it in empathy, the one who kept silent to keep the peace, who bent so much they nearly broke, is gone. Buried beneath the growth, the healing, the hard-earned wisdom. And now, they're standing face to face with someone they don't fully recognize. Someone stronger, calmer, sharper, someone who now moves with discernment, not desperation. They thought time froze the version of you they left behind, They assumed that because you were loyal then, you'd still be waiting now. They thought they could treat you like a placeholder, like your heart was something they could put on a shelf while they figured themselves out. And now that their little world has slowed down, or the options they chased have faded, or the silence got too loud, here they are, coming back like they never broke anything, like they can pick up where they left off, like time didn't teach you what pain could never make clear. You deserved more. And oh, how anger can rise when you think about that. When you think of all the times you poured love into someone who brought nothing to the table but inconsistency and confusion. When you think of the conversations where you cried and they shrugged. When you think of how deeply you tried, not for attention, not for show, but because your heart was sincere and they treated that sincerity like it was a weakness. That's the kind of memory that doesn't just sting, it burns. But then something wild happens. Laughter shows up, not the kind that mocks, but the kind that releases. Because looking back now from this new version of you, the one who knows their worth, you realize just how far you've come. You laugh not because it was funny, but because you survived it. You laugh because the things you once cried over no longer hold power. The same person who had you questioning everything about yourself now comes back trying to figure you out. And there's a strange, satisfying justice in that. See, they don't recognize this version of you. The healed you, the focused you, the quiet you. The version of you that now sets standards instead of begging to be chosen. You're no longer performing for their approval. You're no longer waiting for breadcrumbs of attention. You've lost interest in the chase, in the games, in the explanations. You speak differently now. You walk in rooms differently. You love differently. And let's be real, some of them don't like that. They liked you more when you didn't know your power. They liked you more when your boundaries were blurry and your self-love was low. Now they have to earn what they used to access so freely, and that bothers them. They want the benefits of your light without honoring the fire that made you glow. But you've outgrown the version of you they were comfortable with. That's not ego, that's elevation. That's what growth looks like. It's the moment when you stop shrinking to make others comfortable and start expanding into who you were always meant to be. You no longer keep people in your life based on history. You base it on honor, on effort, on truth. So when they return, they may be shocked. They may say you're distant, cold, changed, and that's okay. Let them feel that shift. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not distant, you're discerning, you're not changed, you've evolved. And not everyone is meant to come with you where you're going. You don't owe anyone the old version of you just because they're familiar with it. Growth doesn't ask for permission. Healing doesn't apologize for its consequences. And your evolution, that's the most powerful response you could ever give. They thought they could return to what they left, but what they left doesn't exist anymore. And that is your victory. Not loud, not spiteful, just undeniable.